Give it a second. There we go. God, why am I doing this? Hello. How's it going? I have book. You're doing books now. Let's see if the self-promotion bot. uh, I love the thing it says playing books for viewers. How's it going? Uh, what? Ah. Oh. Shit. Oh! Tiny little me right there. It's a big ass book. It's House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski. I don't know how to say that. The only issue with a book like this, let me just find a random page with how it's formatted. Christ. This page is in Braille. I saw a fascinating one. This page is sideways. Anyways, we reading. I'm gonna read the preface. It's on the front. Years ago, when House of Leaves was first being passed around, it was nothing more than a badly bundled heap of paper, parts of which would occasionally surface on the internet. No one could have anticipated the small but devoted following this terrifying story would soon command, starting with an odd assortment of marginalized youth, musicians, tattoo artists, programmers, strippers, environmentalists, and adrenaline junkies. Yeah, that's the entire Monster energy drink. That's everybody on the can of a Monster energy drink. The book eventually made its way into the hands of older generations who not only found themselves in those strangely arranged pages, but also discovered a way back into the lives of their estranged children. Now, for the first time, this astonishing novel is made in book form, complete with the original colored words, vertical footnotes, and newly added second and third appendices. The story remains unchanged, focusing on a young family that moved into a small home on Ash Tree Lane, where they discover something terribly wrong. Their house is in blue, is bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. Of course, neither Pulitzer Prize-winning photojournalist Will Davidson nor his companion Karen Green was prepared to face the consequences of that impossibility until the day their two little children wandered off and their voices eerily began to return another story of creature darkness, of an ever-growing abyss behind a closet door. Doctor Who? No, this is House of Leaves. Of an ever-growing abyss behind a closet door, and of that unholy growl which soon enough would tear through the walls and consume all their dreams. Let's see. Yeah! Mark Z. Danielewski's House of Leaves by Zimpano. with introduction notes by Johnny Trant. Contents. Hi. Bigger on the inside. Oh, yeah. No, that's fine. I just haven't watched Doctor Who ever. How's it going, y'all? Oh, that's funny. Okay. Forward. This first edition of House of Leaves was privately distributed, and it did not contain Chapter 21, Appendix 2, Appendix 3, or the Index. Every effort has been made to provide appropriate translations and accurately credit all sources. If we have failed in this endeavor, we apologize in advance. We'll gladly correct in subsequent printings all errors or omissions brought to our attention. The editors. Page 1. This is not for you. Introduction. God, I'm really reading. I still get nightmares. In fact, I get them so often, I should be used to them by now. I'm not. No one ever really gets used to nightmares. For a while, there I tried every pill imaginable, anything to curb the fear. Excedrin, PMS, melatonin, L-tryptophan, Valium, Vicodin, quite a few members of the Barbadol family. Pretty extensive list, frequently mixed, often matched, with shots of bourbon, a few lung-rasping bong hits, sometimes even the vaporous confidence trip of cocaine. None of it helped. I think it's pretty safe to assume that there's no lab sophisticated enough yet to synthesize the kind of chemicals I need. The Nobel Prize is the only one that invents that puppy. I'm so tired. Sleep's been stalking me for too long to remember. Inevitable, I suppose. Sadly, though, I'm not looking forward to the prospect. Whoa, that's crazy. I say sadly, because there was a time when actually I enjoyed sleeping. In fact, I slept all the time. That was before my friend Lude woke me up at 3 in the morning and asked me to come over to his place. Who knows, if I hadn't heard the phone ring, would everything be different now? Think about that a lot. Excuse me. Also, this book is fucking huge. Actually, Lude told me about the old man a month ago. A month or so before that fateful evening. Is that right? Fate? Sure hell's wasn't full. Or was it exactly that? You are excused. Thank you. Can you even hear the background noise? Turn that up a little. This is extremely relaxing. I'm glad to hear that. I've been... I'll drink some water. Remember to hydrate and shit. What background noise? Oh, okay. This ambient enchanted music and ambience forest. Hear the frogs and stuff. Okay, cool. It's called House of Leaves, so I figured ambient forest shit. I've been in the throes of looking for an apartment after a little difficulty with a landlord who woke up one morning. Thank you. Convinced he was Charles de Gaulle. I was so stunned by this announcement that before I could think twice, I'd already told him how, in my humble estimation, he did not at all resemble an airport, though the thought of a 757 landing on him was not at all disagreeable. I was promptly evicted. I could have put up a fight, but the place was a nut house. House is blue. Hydrate or die straight. I mean... nothing wrong with that. Anyway, and I was glad to leave. As it turned out, Chucky de Gaulle burnt the place to the ground a week later. Told the police a 757 had crashed into it. During the following weeks, while I was couching it from Santa Monica to Silver Lake looking for an apartment, Lude told me about this old guy who lived in his building. He had a first-floor apartment, peering out over a wide, overgrown courtyard. Supposedly, that old man had told Lude he would be dying soon. Fuck. Almost sneezed. I didn't think much of it, though it wasn't exactly the kind of thing you ever forget. My friends used to... Yeah. No, I know. Here, wait, let me... Where is that? Congratulations, we just hanging out right here. There you go, look how big you are. Right next to me and shit. Heavy book. At the time, I just figured Lude had been putting me on. He likes to exaggerate. I eventually found a studio in Hollywood and settled back into my mind-numbing routine as an apprentice at a tattoo shop. It was the end of '96. Nights were cold. I was getting over this woman named Clara English, who had told me she wanted to date someone at the top of the food chain, so I demonstrated my unflagging devotion to her memory by immediately developing a heavy crush on this stripper who had Thumper tattooed right above her G-string. Barely an inch from her shaved pussy, or as she liked to call it, the happiest place on earth. Suffice it to say, Lude and I spent the last hour of the year alone, scouting for new bars, new faces, driving recklessly through the canyons, doing our best to talk the high midnight heavens down with a whole lot of bullshit. We never did. Talk them down, I mean. Then the old man died. From what I gather now, he was an American. But as I later find out, those who worked with him detected an accent, even if they could never say for certain where it came from. He called himself Zampano. It was the name he put down on his apartment lease and several other fragments I've found. Never came across any sort of ID, whether a passport, license, or other official document insinuating that, yes, he was indeed an actual and accounted for person. Who knows what his name really came from? Maybe it's authentic, maybe made up, maybe borrowed. A nom de plume, or my personal favorite, a nom de guerre. Oh, there's a ferry right behind me. Can't see. Oh, it flew away. Yeah. Oh shit! It's back, but it's still behind me. As Lude told it, Zampano had lived in the building for many years, though he mostly kept to himself and never failed to appear every morning and evening to walk around the courtyard. A wild place with knee-high weeds and a back then populated with over 80 stray cats. Apparently the cats liked the old man a lot, and though he offered no enticements, they would constantly rub up against his legs before darting back into the center of that dusty place. Anyway, Lude had been out very late with some woman he'd met at his salon. It was just after 7 when he stumbled back into the courtyard, and despite a severe hangover, immediately saw what was missing. Lude frequently came home early and always found the old guy working his way around the perimeter of those weeds, occasionally resting on a sun-beaten bench or taking another round. A single mother who got up every morning at 6 also noted Zampano's absence, but when dusk came and their old neighbor had still not appeared, both Lude and the single mother went to alert Flays, the resident building manager. Flays is part Hispanic, part Samoan, a bit of a giant, you might say. 6'4", 245 pounds, and virtually no body fat. Vandals, junkies, you name it. They get near the building and Flays will lunge at them like a pit bull raised in a crack house. House is blue. And don't think he believes size and strength are invincible. If the interlopers are carrying, he'll show them his own gun collection, and he'll draw on them too, faster than Billy the Kid. But as soon as Lude voiced his suspicion about the old man, Pitbull and Billy the Kid went straight out the window. Flay suddenly couldn't find the keys. He started muttering and calling the owner of the building. After 20 minutes, he was... Oh! Emotes. After 20 minutes, Lude was so fed up with the hemming and hawing, he offered to handle the whole thing himself. Blaze immediately found the keys, and with a big grin, plopped them into Lude's outstretched hand. Blaze told me later he'd never seen a dead body before, and there was no question that there would be a body. Hi, Raven. Raven's my cat. Of whom you two have definitely seen, and there's nobody else watching, so congrats. That just didn't sit well with Blaze. We know what we'd find, he said. We knew that guy was dead. The police found Zapanio just like Lude found him, lying face down on the floor. The paramedic said there was nothing unusual, just the way it goes. Okay. Raven, come here. Good girl. I hope the fan isn't too loud or audible at all. Like 5 minutes? Oh, okay. The paramedic said there was nothing unusual, just the way it goes. 80-some years and the inevitable kerplunk. The system goes down, lights blink out, there you have it. Another body on the floor surrounded by things that don't mean much to anyone except the one who can't take them any long. No fan noise? Oh, hell yeah. Still, this was better than the prostitute the paramedics had seen earlier that day. She'd been torn to pieces in a hotel room, parts of her used to paint the walls and ceiling red. Compared to that, this seemed almost pleasant. The whole process took a while, police coming and going, paramedics attending to the body, for one thing to make sure the old man was really dead. Neighbors, and eventually even flays poking their heads in to gawk, wander, or just graze on a scene that might someday resemble their own end. When it was finally over, it was very late. Lude stood alone. Excuse me. In the apartment. The corpse gone, an official's gone, even Flays, the neighbors, and any other assorted snoops, all gone. Not a soul in sight. "80 fucking years old, alone in that piss hole," Lude told me later. I don't want to end up like that. No wife, no kids, no nobody at all. Not even one fucking friend. I must have laughed because Lude suddenly turned on me. Hey Haas, don't think young and squirting lots of cum guarantees you shit. Wow. Look at yourself working at a tattoo shop, falling for some stripper named Thumper. He was sure right about one thing. Zapanio had no family, no friends, and hardly a penny to his name. The next day, the landlord posted a notice of abandonment, and later that week, after declaring that the contents of the apartment were less than $300, he called some charity to haul the stuff away. That was the night Lude made his awful discovery, right before the boys from Goodwill took, or wherever they came from, swept in with their gloves and hand trucks. When the phone rang, I was fast asleep. Anybody else would have hung up on, but Lude's a good enough friend that I actually dragged my ass out of bed at 3 in the morning and headed over to Franklin. Sorry, I got a thing. Ah, there we go. He was waiting outside the gate with a wicked gleam in his eye. I should have turned around right then. I should have known something was up, at the very least sensed the consequences lingering in the air, in the hour, and Lude's stare and all of it. Fuck. I must have been some kind of moron to have been so oblivious to all those signs. The way Lude's keys rattled like bone chimes as he opened the main gate, the hinges suddenly shrieking as if they weren't entering a crowded building, but some ancient moss-eaten crypt. The way we padded down the dank hallway, buried in shadows, lamps above hung with spangles of light that I swear now must have been the work of gray, primitive spiders. Probably most importantly of all, the way Lude whispered when he told me things I couldn't give a damn about back then, but now, well, my nights would have been a great deal shorter if I didn't have to remember them. Ever see yourself doing something in the past, and no matter how many times you remember it, you still want to scream stop, somehow redirect the action, reorder the present? I feel that way now, watching myself tug stupidly along by inertia, my own inquisitiveness or whatever. And it must have been something else, though what exactly I have no clue. Maybe nothing, maybe nothing's all. Pretty meaningless combinations of word, nothing's all, but what I like just the same. It doesn't matter anyway. Whoever orders, whatever orders the path of all my yesterdays was strong enough that night to draw me past those little sleepers Past all those sleepers kept safely at bay from the living, locked behind their sturdy doors until I stood at the end of the hall facing the last door on the left. An unremarkable door, too, but still a door to the dead. Lude, of course, had been unaware of the unsettling characteristics of our little journey to the back of the building. He had been recounting to me, in many ways dwelling upon what had happened following the old man's death. "Two things, Haas," Lude muttered as the gate glided open. Not that they make much difference, and as far as I could tell, he was right. They have very little to do with what follows. I include them in only because they're part of the history surrounding Zampanyo's death. Hopefully, you'll be able to make sense of what I can represent, though still fail to understand. The first peculiar thing, Lude told me, leading the way down the short flight of stairs, were the cats. Apparently in the months preceding the old man's death, the cats had begun to disappear. By the time that he died, they were all gone. I saw one with its head ripped off and another with its guts strewn all over the sidewalk. Mostly, though, it just vanished. Second peculiar thing you'll see for yourself, Lude said, lowering his voice even more as we slipped past the room. It will look suspiciously like a coven of musicians, all of them listening intently to headphones passing around a spliff. Right next to the body, Lude continued. I found these gouges in the hardwood floor, a good 6 or 7 inches long, very weird. But since the old man showed no signs of physical trauma, the cops let it go. He stopped. He'd reached the door. Now I shudder. Back then, I think I was elsewhere, more likely than daydreaming about Thumper. This will probably wig you out, I don't care. But one night, I even rented Bambi and got a hard on. What? That's how bad I was. That's how bad I had it for her. Thumper was something else, and she sure beat the hell out of Claire English. Perhaps at that moment I was even thinking about what the two would look like in a cat fight. One thing's for sure, though, when I heard Lude turn the bolt and open Zampanyo's door, I lost sight of those dreams. What hit me first wasn't the smell. It wasn't a bad smell, just incredibly strong. And it wasn't one thing either, it was extremely layered, like a patina upon progressive patina of odor. The actual source of which had long since evaporated. Back then it had overwhelmed me, so much of it cloying, bitter, rotten, even mean. These days I can no longer remember the smell, only my reaction to it. Still, if I had to give it a name, I think I would call it the scent of human history, a composite of sweat, urine, shit, blood, flesh, and semen, as well as joy, sorrow, jealousy, rage, vengeance, fear, love, hope, and a whole lot more. All of which probably sounds pretty ridiculous, especially since the abilities of my nose are not really relevant here. What's important, though, is that the smell was complex for a reason. All of the windows were nailed shut and sealed with a caulking. Yeah, Reed? What's up? Even the vents were covered with duct tape. That said, this peculiar effort to eliminate any ventilation in the tiny apartment did not culminate with bars on the windows or multiple locks at the doors. Zampanyo was not afraid of the outside world. As I've already pointed out, he walked around his courtyard and supposedly was even fearless enough to brave the LA public transport system for an occasional trip to the beach. An adventure even I'm afraid to make. My best guess now is that he sealed his apartment in an effort to retain the various emanations of his things and himself. Can we put some campfire sounds in the back, or like rain? Do you not like the frogs and stuff? Campfire. Oh shit, I just heard them. I didn't notice it, bruh. I think that's the point. You're not supposed to notice it.
Shut up and listen to my order. Take the 6 nuggets and throw 2 of them away. Put 2 of them up your ass.
Anyways. Hi, how's it going? What's important though is that the smell was complex for a reason. All the windows were nailed shut, also high bacon. All the windows were nailed shut and sealed with caulking, the front entrance and courtyard doors all storm-proofed, even the vents were covered with duct tape. That said, this peculiar effort to eliminate any ventilation in the tiny apartment did not culminate with bars on the windows or multiple locks on the doors. Zampano was not afraid of the outside world. As I've already pointed out, he was walking around the courtyard, supposedly even fearless enough to brave the LA public transport system for an occasional trip to the beach, an adventure even I'm afraid to make. My best guess is that my best guess now is that he sealed his apartment in an effort to retain the various emanations of his things and himself. Where his things were concerned, they ran a spectrum: tattered furniture, unusual candles, ancient ceramic bowls, as well as glass jars and small wood boxes full of rivets, rubber bands, seashells, matches, peanut shells, 1,000 different kinds of elaborately shaped and colored buttons. One ancient beer stein held nothing more than discarded perfume bottles. As I discovered, the refrigerator wasn't empty, but there wasn't any food in it either. Zampano had crammed it full of strange, pale books. Of course, all that's gone now, long gone, the smell too. I'm left with only a few scattered mental snapshots. A battered Zippo lighter with a patent pending printed on the bottom. The twining metal ridge, looking a little like some tiny spiral staircase winding down into the bulbless interior of a light socket. Fuck. For some reason, what I remember most of all, a very old tube of chapstick with an amber-like resin hard and cracked, which still wasn't entirely accurate, though don't be misled into thinking I'm not trying to be accurate. There were, I admit, other things I recall about his place. They just don't seem relevant now. To my eye, it was all just junk. Time having performed no economic alchemy there, which had hardly mattered, but Lude hadn't called me over to ruin these particular, use one of those big words I would eventually learn in the ensuing months, deracinated details of Zampano's life. Deracinated. Funny. Sure enough, just as my friend had described, on the floor, in fact practically dead center, were 4 marks, all of them longer than a hand. Jagged bits of wood clawed up by something neither one of us cared to imagine. That's not what Lude wanted me to see either. He was pointing to something else which hardly impressed me when I first glanced at its implacable shape. Oh! Water. I'm gonna be drinking lots of water. Water's good. Truth be told, I was still having a hard time taking my eyes off the scarred floor. I even reached out to touch the protruding splinters. What did I know then? What do I know now? At least some of the horror I took away at 4 in the morning. You now have before you, waiting for you, a little like it waited for me that night, only without these few covering pages. As I discovered, there were reams and reams of it. Endless snarls of wood, sometimes twisting into meaning, sometimes into nothing at all, frequently breaking apart, always branching off into other pieces I'd come across later, on old napkins, the tattered edges of an envelope, once even on the back of a postage stamp. Everything and anything but empty, each fragment completely covered with the creep of years and years of ink pronouncements, layered, crossed out, amended, handwritten, typed, legible, illegible, impenetrable, lucid, torn, stained, scotch taped. Some bits crisp and clean, others faded, burnt or folded and refolded so many times the creases have obliterated whole passages of God knows what: sense, truth, deceit, a legacy of prophecy or lunacy, or nothing of the kind, and in the end achieving, designating, describing, recreating, finding your own words. I have no more. Plenty more, but why? And all to tell what? Lude didn't have the answer, but somehow I knew he would. But Lude didn't need to have the answer, but somehow I knew I would. Maybe that's why we were friends, or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he didn't need the answer, but he just knew he wasn't the one who could find it. Maybe that's the real reason we're friends. That's probably wrong too. One thing's for sure, even without touching it, both of us slowly began to feel its heaviness. Sensed something horrifying in its proportions, its silence, its stillness. Even if it did seem to have been shoved almost carelessly to the side of the room. I think now if someone had said be careful, we would have. I know a moment came when I felt certain its resolute blackness was capable of anything. Maybe even slashing out, tearing open the floor, murdering Zappano, murdering us, or maybe even murdering you. Then the moment passed. Wonder and the way the imaginable is sometimes suggested by the inanimate suddenly faded. The thing became only a thing, so I took it home. Back then, well, it's way back then by now, you could have found me downing shots of whiskey at Le Poble. Annihilating my inner ear at Bar Deluxe or dining at Jones with some busty redhead I met at House of Blues and House is Blue. A conversation traversing wildly from clubs we knew to clubs we'd like to know. I sure as fuck wasn't bothered by old man Z's words. All these signs I just now finished telling you about quickly, what? All these signs I just now finished telling you about quickly vanished in the light of subsequent days, or had never been there to begin with, existing only in retrospect. At first, curiosity drove me from one phrase to the next. Often a few days would pass before I'd pick up another mauled scrap, maybe even a week. But still I returned for 10 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, grazing over the scenes. Oh, hi. How's it going, Ice Cafe? Iced coffee? Oh. I'm reading. What was I saying? At first, only curiosity drove me from one. I will hydrate now. From one phrase to the next. Often days would pass before I pick up another malt scrap, maybe in a week, but still I return for 10 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, grazing over the scenes, the names, small connections starting to form. Minor patterns evolving in these spare slivers of time. I never read for more than an hour. Of course, curiosity killed the cat, and even if satisfaction supposedly brought it back, there's still that little problem with the man on the radio telling me more and more about some useless information, but I didn't care. I just turned off the radio. Then one evening, I looked over at my clock and discovered 7 hours had passed. Lude had called, but I hadn't noticed the phone ring. I was more than a little surprised when I found his message on my answering machine. That wasn't the last time I lost sense of time either. In fact, it began to happen more often. Dozens of hours just blinking by, lost in the twist of so many dangerous sentences. Slowly but surely, I grew more and more disoriented, increasingly more detached from the world. Something sad and awful straining around the edges of my mouth, surfacing in my ears. I stopped going out at night. I stopped going out. Nothing could distract me. I felt like I was losing control. Something terrible was going to happen. Eventually, something terrible did happen. No one could reach me, not Thumper, not even Lude. I nailed my windows shut, threw out the closet and bathroom doors, storm-proofed everything, and locks. Oh yes, I bought plenty of locks, chains too, a dozen measuring tapes, nailing all those straight to the floor and the walls. They look suspiciously like lost metal runes, or from a different angle, the fragile ribs of some alien ship. However, unlike Zampano, this wasn't about smell. This was about space. I wanted it closed. Inviolate, and most of all, immutable space. At least the measuring tapes should have helped. They didn't. Nothing did. I just fixed myself some tea on the hot plate here. My stomach's gone. I could barely even keep this honey milked up stuff down, but I need the warmth. I'm in a hotel now. My studio's history. A lot of these days is history. I haven't even washed the blood off yet. Not all of it's mine either. Still caked around my fingers, signs of it on my shirt. What's happened here? I keep asking myself, what have I done? What would you have done? I went straight for the guns and I loaded them and I tried to decide what to do with them. The obvious thing was to shoot something. After all, that's what guns are designed to do, shoot something. But who or what? I didn't have a clue. There were people and cars outside my hotel window. Midnight people I didn't even know. Midnight cars I've never seen before. I could have shot them. I could have shot them all. I threw up in my closet instead. Of course, I lay have my own immeasurable stupidity to blame for winding up here. The old man left plenty of clues and warnings. I was the fool to disregard them. Was it the reverse? Did I secretly enjoy them? At least I should have some fucking inkling what I was getting into when I read this note, written just one day before he died. No, I'm not going to do that, Ricky. January 5th, 1997. Whoever finds and publishes this work shall be entitled to all proceeds that only my name takes its rightful place. Fuck me. I'm gonna hydrate again. Throat hurts. We're only like 7 pages in. I'm a faster reader when I'm not talking. Whoever finds and publishes this work shall be... What's up, Raven? Yeah? Okay. I only ask that my name takes its rightful place. Perhaps you will even prosper if, however, you discover that readers are less than sympathetic and choose to dismiss the... Why do you subscribe?
Master, you screw me onto your big dick and use me as a cock sleeve.
Why did you subscribe? And thank you for subscribing. If, however, you discover that readers are less than sympathetic and choose to dismiss this, thank you again, enterprise out of hand, then may I suggest you drink plenty of wine and dance in the sheets of your wedding night. Wow. Whether you know it or not, now you are truly prosperous. They say a truth stands the test of time. I can think of no greater comfort than knowing this document failed such a test. But back then meant absolutely nothing to me. Yeah, it's a good sub sound. Everybody should subscribe to me a lot. Do it. Do it. Do it. Sure as hell didn't pause to think that some lousy words were going to land me in a shitty hotel room, saturated with the stink of my own vomit. After all, as I fast discovered, Zapanyo's entire project is about a film, which doesn't even exist. You can look, I have, but no matter how long you search, you will never find the Navidson record in theaters or video stores. Furthermore, most of what said by famous people has been made up. I tried contacting all of them, those that took the time to respond to me. Never heard of Will Navidson, let alone Zapanyo. Books are cited in footnotes. A good portion of them are fictitious. For instance, Gavin Young's Shots in the Dark doesn't exist, nor does the works of Hubert Howell Bancroft, volume... Fuck, I don't know what that is. XXVIII. That's what... 208 or 28? X is a 10? Or is it 100? I think it's a 10. So volume 28. On the other hand, virtually any dimwit can go to the library and find W.M. Lindsay and H.J. Thomas's Ancient Lore in the Medieval Latin Glossaries. Fuck. There really was a rebellion on the 1973 Skylab mission, but La Belle ne soit est le ben chien, Bao Chien, I don't fucking know. Made up as it is, I assume, the bloody story of Quesada and Molino. Add to this my own mistakes, and there's no doubt I'm responsible for plenty, as well as those errors Zapanyo made, which I failed to notice or correct. And you see why there's suddenly a whole lot here to not take too serious. In retrospect, I also realize that there are probably numerous people who would have been better qualified to handle this work, scholars with PhDs from Ivy League schools, and minds greater than any Alexandrian library or WorldNet. The problem is those people were still in their universities, still on their net and nowhere near Whitley, when an old man without friends and family finally died. Zapanio, I've come to recognize now, was a very funny man, but his humor was that wry, dissected kind of soldier's whisper. All their jokes subsurfaced, their laughter amounting to little more than a tick in the corner of their mouth, as they wait together in their outpost, slowly realizing that help's not going to reach them in time, and come nightfall, no matter what they've done or what they try to say, slaughter will overrun them all. Carrion dawn for vultures. See, the irony is it makes no difference that the documentary at the heart of this book is fictitious. Zapanio knew from the get-go what's real and doesn't matter here. Consequences are the same. I could suddenly imagine the cracked voice I never heard, lips barely creasing into a smile, eyes pinned on darkness. Irony? Voice. It's a cracked voice. Irony. Irony can never be more than our own personal magnet line. A Maginot line, the drawing of it, the most part purely arbitrary. That's good enough. It's not surprising. Yeah? What's up, Raven? Not surprising that when it came to undermining his own work, the old man was superbly capable. False quotes or invented sources, however, all in pale in comparison to his biggest joke. Zapanio writes constantly about seeing what we see, how we see, and what in turn we can't see, over and over again in one form or another. He turns to the subject of light, space, shape, line, color, focus, tone, contrast, movement, rhythm, perspective, and composition. Hi, Raven. None of which is surprising, considering Zapanio's piece centers on a documentary film called The Novitzin Project, made by a Pulitzer Prize-winning photojournalist who must somehow capture the most difficult subject of all, the sight of darkness itself. Odd, to say the least. At first I figured Zapanio was just a bleak old dude, a kind who makes Itchy and Scratchy look like Calvin and Hobbes. His apartment, however, didn't come close to anything envisioned by Joel, Peter, Whitkin, or what's routinely... Ah, Raven. What? Oh yeah? Yeah? That idiot. Sorry about that. What's routinely revealed on the news. Sure, his place was eclectic, but hardly grotesque or even that far out of the ordinary, until of course he took a more careful look and realized, hey, why are all these candles unused? Why no clocks? And not on the walls, not even the corner of a dresser. And so what's with these strange pale books, or the fact that there's hardly a goddamn bulb in the whole apartment? Not even one in the refrigerator. Well, that, of course, was Zapanio's greatest ironic gesture. Ah. Love of love written by the brokenhearted. Love of life written by the dead. All this language of light, film, and photography. He hadn't seen a thing since the mid-50s. He was blind as a bat. Almost half the books he owned were in Braille. Lude and Flays both confirmed that over the years the old guy had numerous readers visiting him during the day. Some of these came from community centers, the Braille Institute, or were just volunteers from USC, UCLA, or Santa Monica College. No one I ever spoke with, however, claimed to know him well, though more than a few were willing to offer me their opinions. One student believed he was certifiably mad. Fuck. Another actress who spent a summer reading to him thought Zapanio was romantic. She'd come over one morning and I found him in a terrible way. At first, I assumed he was drunk. But the old guy never drank, not even a sip of wine. Didn't smoke either. He really lived an austere life. Anyway, he wasn't drunk, just really depressed. He started crying and asked me to leave. I fixed him some tea. Tears don't frighten me. Later he told me it was heart trouble. Just old heartache matters, he said. Whoever she was, she must have been really special. He never told me a name. As I found out, Zapano had 7 names that he would occasionally mention. Beatrice, Gabrielle, Anne-Marie, Dominique, Elaine, Isabel, and Claudine. He apparently only brought them up when he was disconsolate, and for whatever reason dragged back into some dark, tangled time. At least there's mythology. At least there's something more realistic about his 7 lovers than one mythological Helen. Even in his 80s, Zapano sought out the company of the opposite sex. Coincidence had had no hand in arranging for all his readers to be female. As he openly admitted, there's no greater comfort in my life than those soothing tones cradled in woman's words. That may be his own words. Zapano was in essence, to use another big word, a gramophomaniac. He scribbled until he died. What? Yeah. But while he came close a few times, he never finished anything. Especially the work he would unabashedly describe as either his masterpiece or his precious darling. Even the day he failed to appear in that dusty courtyard, he was dictating long discursive passages, amending the previously written pages and Raven, what are you doing? He was just staring at the floor. His mind never ceased branching out into new territories. The woman who saw him for the last time remarked that whatever it was he could never quite address in himself prevented him from ever settling. Death finally saw to that. With little luck, he'll dismiss this labor, react as Zampano had hoped, call it needlessly complicated, pointlessly obtuse, prolix, your word, ridiculously conceived. And you'll believe all that you've said. And then you'll put it aside. Even though here, just that one word, aside, makes me shudder. But what it... Ugh. Ah, water. Good shit, good shit. For what is ever really put aside, when you carry on, eat, drink, and be merry, most of all, you'll sleep well. And again, there's a good chance you won't. This much I'm certain. It doesn't happen immediately. You'll finish, and that will be that. Until a moment will come, maybe in a month, maybe a year, maybe several years. You'll be sick, or feeling troubled, or deeply in love, or quietly uncertain, or even content for the first time in your life. It won't matter, out of the blue. Beyond any cause you trace, you'll suddenly realize things are not how you perceive them to be at all. For some reason, you will no longer be the person you believed you were. You'll detect slow and subtle shifts going on all around you. More importantly, shifts in you. What? Shifts in you. Fuck. Worse, you'll realize it's always been shifting, like a shimmer of sorts, a vast shimmer, only dark like a room. But you won't understand why or how. You'll have forgotten what granted you this awareness in the first place. Old shelters, television, magazines, movies won't protect you anymore. You might even try scribbling in a journal, on a napkin, maybe even the margins of this notebook, or of this book. That's when you'll discover you no longer trust the very walls you always took for granted. Even the hallways you've walked 100 times will feel longer, much longer, and the shadows, any shadow at all, will suddenly seem deeper, much, much deeper. You might try then, as I did, to find a sky so full of stars it will blind you again. Only no sky can blind you now. Even with all that iridescent magic up there, your eye will no longer linger on the light. You will no longer trace constellations. You'll only care about the darkness. And you watch it for hours, for days, maybe even for years, trying in vain to believe you're some kind of indispensable, universe-appointed sentinel. As if just by looking, you could actually keep it all at bay. It will get so bad you'll be afraid to look away. You'll be afraid to sleep. Then no matter where you are, in a crowded restaurant or some desolate street, or even in the discomforts of your own home, you'll watch yourself dismantle every assurance you ever lived by. You'll stand aside as a great complexity intrudes, tearing apart piece by piece all of your carefully conceived denials, whether deliberately or unconscious. And for better or worse, you'll turn unable to resist. Though try to resist, you still will, fighting for everything you've got. Not to face the thing you most dread, what is now, what will be, what has always come before. The creature you truly are, the creature we all are, buried in the nameless black of a name. And then the nightmares will begin. That was just the introduction. The Novidson record. Chapter 1. Saw a film today. Oh boy. The Beatles. Enthusiasts and detractors will continue to empty entire dictionaries attempting to describe or deride it. Authenticity still remains the word most likely to stir debate. In fact, this leading obsession to validate or invalidate the reels and tapes, invariably bringing up a collateral and more general concern whether or not, with the advent of digital technology, image has forsaken its once unimpeachable hold on truth. Footnote 1, a topic more carefully considered in Chapter 9. For most parts, skeptics call the whole effort of a hoax, begrudgingly admit the Novidson record is a hoax of exceptional quality. Raven! Raven! Hey! Stop that. I don't want you to fucking poop in my beanbag chair. Unfortunately, out of those who accept its validity, many tend to swear allegiance to tabloid UFO sightings. Clearly, it's not easy to appear credible, and after vouching for the film's verity, the discourse suddenly switches to why Elvis is still alive and probably wintering in the Florida Keys, too. See Daniel Bowler's Resurrection of an Ash Tree Lane, Elvis Christmas Past, and other non-entities, published in The House. House is Blue. New York, Little Brown, 1995. Page 167 to 244, in which he examines the inherent contradiction of any claim alleging resurrection, as well as the existence of that place. One thing remains certain: any controversy surrounding Billy Mayer's film on flying saucers, footnote 3, or for that matter, the Cottingley Fairies, Curlian photography, Ted Ciro's thoughtography, or Alexander Gardner's photograph of the Union dead. Raven! Have been supplanted by the House is Blue, on Ash Tree Lane. Many continue to devote substantial time and energy to the antimonies of fact or fiction, representation or artifice, document or prank. As of late, the more interesting material dwells exclusively on the interpretation of events within the film. This direction seems more promising. Even the House is Blue itself, like Melvin's Behemoth, remains resistant to summation. Much like its subject, the Novidson record is also uneasily contained. Whether by category or election, if finally catalogued as gothic tale, contemporary urban folk myth, or merely a ghost story. Raven! Here, 1 second. Apparently, cats are prone to using beanbag chairs as bathrooms. What? Excuse me again. Here. Back to the book. Fucking slammed herself into a wall. Goddamn. Doodly 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 doo. Where one might expect horror, the supernatural, or traditional paroxysms of dread and fear, one discovers disturbing sadness and consequence of radioactive isotopes, or even laughter over a Simpsons episode. The 17th century, England's greatest topographer. Wait. You hear that? Raven's quiet meowing in the background. Ah, shit. Raven meows, yeah. Yeah, she's very cute. It looked like she was about to use the bathroom on my beanbag chair, so I had to kick her out of the room. But, actually, wait, let me do a thing. Alright. We're gonna take a little cat break. This is where we take a break to watch my cat do cat shit. Yeah. Let me do something real quick. Be right back. I'm back, and sorry about that. Look at her go. Absolute adorable little girl.
Hashtag DOS is gay.
Bruh. How dare you?
Suck.
Oh, fuck. I'm sorry, I wanted to take a little break from reading. Oh, yes. Suck. Suck. It'll take as long as you want. Okay, thank you. If you want to hear a fun fact... oh, wait, let's see. In Divine Born, that hell is nothing less than regions of sorrow, doleful shades, where peace and rest never dwell, hope never comes, that comes to all. This is page 4. Also, I really hope this is important content. Damn right. Trying to make it to where you can hear her meows, but like everything's not too loud. Oh, we can hear him? Hell yeah. I know that there's like a constant static, sorry about that. Raven. What you looking at? What appears she's gotten tired. So what I'll do... So what I'll do is take this delightful little camera and just kind of, I don't know, move that right there. Just let the background music of the forest watching a slug. Yeah. I'll be right back. Alright. Alright, camera. Back on. Trying to get like the most of the room to where you can still see her. But to where you don't see me. Because I'm still not wearing pants. Thus echoing the words. Oh, wait, yeah, no. Okay, so this is House of Leaves. Every house is blue. And I don't know how long I'm just going to keep saying the house is blue. Maybe for a while. Maybe for a while. This echoing the words copied down by Hell's most famous artist, tourist. I don't know how to speak that. This for let us see. The nascio me no fu consecrate se nom eterna e eterna duro. Lassiate ogni speranza voi c'entrante. That's me trying. That first bit comes from Milton's Paradise Lost, Book 1, lines 65 to 67. The second from Dante's Inferno, Canto 3, lines 7 to 9. In 1939, some guy named John D. Sinclair from the Oxford University Press translated the Italian as follows. Before me, nothing was created but eternal things, and I endure eternally. Abandon every hope, ye that enter. Oh, that's cool. Also, along with the ambient forest stuff, did you notice Don Choodle? A good man, Don Choodle, right here, behind the jar. He's just there eternally. Even today, many people still feel the Davidson record, in spite of all its existential refinements and contemporary illusions, continues to reflect those exact sentiments. In fact, a few eager intellectuals have already begun to treat the film as a warning in and of itself, perfectly suited for hanging hole above the gates, as such schools as Erectitugs, Popmo, consequentialism, neoplastism, pneumology, information theory, Marxism, biosemetics, to nothing to say of psychology, medicine, New Age spirituality, art, and even neo-minimalism. All those words make sense. Will Davidson, however, remains stalwart in his insistence that his documentary should be taken literally, as he himself says, all this, don't take it as anything else but this. And if one day you find yourself passing by that house, houses in blue, don't stop, don't slow down, just keep going. There's nothing there. Beware. Oops. Considering how the film ends, it's not surprising that more than a handful of people have decided to heed his advice. Davidson record did not appear as it does today. Nearly 7 years ago, what surfaced was the 5.5-minute hallway. A 5.5-minute optical illusion, barely exceeding the abilities of any New York University Film School graduate. The problem, of course, was the accompanying statement that claimed all of it was true. In one continuous shot, Davidson, whom we never actually see, momentarily focuses on a doorway on the north wall of his living room before climbing outside the house through a window at the east, where he trips slightly over a flower bed, redirects the camera from the ground to the exterior white clapboard, then moves right, crawling back inside the house through a second window, this time to the west of that door, where you hear him grunt slightly as he knocks his head on the sill, eliciting light laughter from those in the room, presumably Karen, his brother Tom, and his friend Billy Reston. Though, like Davidson, They never appear on camera, before returning to the staring point, thus completely encircling the doorway and proving, beyond the shadow of a doubt, that insulation or siding is the only possible thing this doorway could lead to, which is when all laughter stops as Novitzyn's hand appears in the frame and pulls open the door, revealing a narrow black hallway at least 10 feet long, prompting Novitzyn to reinvestigate, once again leading us on another circumambulation. Wait. What? Circumambulation. Oh, whatever. Of this strange passageway, climbing in and out of the windows, pointing the camera to where the hallway should extend out, but finding nothing more than his own backyard. No 10-foot protuberance, just rose bushes, a muddy dark gun, and the translucent summer air. In essence, an exercise in disbelief which, despite his best intentions, still takes Novitzyn back inside that impossible hallway, until as the camera begins to move closer, threatening this time to actually enter it, Karen snaps, "Don't you dare go in there, Navy," to which Tom adds, "Yeah, not such a hot idea," thus arresting Novitzyn at the threshold, though he still puts his hand inside, finally retracting and expecting it, as if by seeing alone there might be something more to feel. Reston wanting to know if in fact his friend does sense something different, and Novitzyn proving matter of fact, which also serves to this conclusion, however abrupt, to this bizarre short. It's freezing in there. Dissemination of the 5.5 minute hallway seemed driven by curiosity alone. No one ever officially distributed it, and so it never appeared in film festivals or commercial film circles. Rather, VHS copies were passed around by hand, a series of progressively degenerating dubs of home video, revealing a truly bizarre Houses in Blue, with notably fewer details about the owners, for that matter, the author of the piece. Less than a year later, another short surfaced. It was even more hotly sought after than the 5.5 minute hallway, and resulted in some fervent questions for Novitzyn and the Houses in Blue itself, all of which, for one reason or another, failed. Unlike the first, the short was not a continuous shot, prompting many to speculate that the 8 minutes making up exploration number 4 were in fact bits of a much larger whole. The structure of exploration number 4 is highly discontinuous, jarring, and, as evidenced by many poor edits, even hurried. The first shot catches Novitzyn mid-phrase. He is tired, depressed, and pale. Days, I think, and I don't know. Drink of something unclear what. Actually, I'd like to burn it down. Can't think of anything to do, can't think clearly enough to do it, though. Laughs. And now, this. The next shot jumps to Karen and Tom arguing over whether or not to go in after him. Those are in quotes. At this point, it remains unclear to whom they are referring. There are several more shots. Trees in winter, blood on the kitchen floor, one shot of a child, Daisy, crying, then back to Novitzyn. Nothing but this tape, which I've seen enough times. It's more like a memory than anything else. Still don't know, was he right or just out of his mind? Followed by 3 more shots. Dark hallways, windowless rooms, stairs. Then a new voice. I'm lost. Out of food, low on water, no sense of direction. Oh, God. The speaker is a bearded, broad-shouldered man with frantic eyes. He speaks rapidly and appears short of breath. Fuck. Holloway Roberts, born in Menominee, Wisconsin. Bachelor's from University of Massachusetts. There's something here. It's following me. No, it's stalking me. I've been stalked by it for days, but for some reason it's not attacking. It's waiting. Waiting for something. I don't know what. Holloway Roberts, Menominee, Wisconsin. I'm not here alone. I am not alone. Thus bringing an end to this strange abstract, which, as the release of the Novitzyn record revealed, was sparingly incomplete. Then for 2 years, nothing. Few clues about any of these people. Fuck! Few clues about who any of these people were, though eventually a number of photographers in the news community did recognize the author as none other than Will Navidson, prize-winning photojournalist who won the Pulitzer for his picture of a dying girl in Sudan. Unfortunately, this discovery only generated a few months of heated speculation before, in the absence of press corroboration, the location of the houses in blue, or for any matter, any comment by Navidson himself, interest died out. Most people just wrote it off as some kind of weird hoax, or because of the unusual conceit and apparent UFO sighting. What? Nevertheless, the deteriorating dubs did circulate, and in some trendy academic circles, a debate began. Was the subject a haunted house? Houses in blue? What did Holloway mean by lost? How could anyone be lost in a house? Houses in blue? For days anyways. Furthermore, what was someone like Navidson, what was someone with Navidson credentials doing creating two strange shorts like these? And again, was this artifice or reality? Certainly a good deal of debate was sustained by a bit of old-fashioned cultural elitism. What are you wearing? You can just see her tail over there. People talked about Navidson pieces because they were lucky enough to have seen them. Lee Sinclair suspects a majority of professors, students, Soho artists, and avant-garde filmmakers who spoke and even wrote, some knowing about the tapes, more likely than never seen or viewed one frame. There just weren't that many copies available. Certainly. Excuse me. Well, 5.5 minute hallway, and exploration number 4 have been respectively called a teaser and a trailer. Oh yeah. 1 second. Excuse me. What's up, Raven? You not like that sneeze? Another one. Oh fuck. Bless you. Thank you. Well, the 5.5 minute hallway and exploration number 4 have been respectively called a teaser and a trailer. They are also, in their own right, peculiar cinematic moments. On a purely symbolic level, they afford a vast potential for examination. The compression of space. Thank you. The compression of space, the power of the imagination to decompress that space, the houses in blue, as a trope for the unlimited and unknowable, etc., etc. On a strictly visceral level, they provide ample shocks and curiosities. However, the most unnerving aspect about both pieces is their ability to convince us that everything really happened, some of which can be attributed to the verifiable elements, Holloway Roberts, Will Navidson et al. Fuck. Oh, I do sniffles now. But most of which can be chalked up to the starkness of the production, the absence of makeup, expensive soundtracks, or crane shots, except for the framing, editing, and in some cases subtitles. That has footnote number 7, arguably interpretive, especially in the case of Holloway's garbled patter, where even the subtitles appear as incomprehensible onomatopoeia, or just question marks. There is virtually no room for creative intrusion. Who would have suspected... she played with a little rat toy for a second. Who would have suspected that almost 3 years after the Let's make that just a little bit bigger. That's almost 3 years after the 5.5-minute hallway began appearing on VHS, Miramax quietly released the Novitzin record in a limited run and almost immediately unsettled audiences everywhere. Since the opening 3 years ago last April, i.e. 1993, in New York and Los Angeles, the Novitzin record has been screened nationwide. While hardly a blockbuster, the film continues to generate revenues as well as interest. Film periodicals frequently publish reviews, critiques, and letters. Books devoted entirely to the Novitzin record now appear with some regularity. Numerous professors have made the Novitzin record viewing required viewing for their seminars, while many universities already claim that dozens of students from a variety of departments have completed doctoral dissertations on the film. Comments and references frequently appear in the Harper's, The New Yorker, Esquire, American Heritage, Vanity Fair, Spin, as well as on late-night television. Interest abroad is intense. Japan, France, and Norway have all responded with awards, but to this day, the Spectral Novitzin has yet to appear, let alone accept any one of these. Even the garrulous Weinstein brothers remain unusually reticent about the film and its creator. Interview magazine quoted Harvey Weinstein as saying, "It is what it is." The Novitzin record now starts as part of this country's cultural experience, and yet, in spite of the fact that hundreds of thousands of people have seen it, the film continues to remain an enigma. Some insist it must be true, others believe it's a trick on par with Orson Welles' radio romp, The War of the Worlds. Others could care less, admitting, either way, the Novitzin record was a pretty good tale, and most... Still many more have never even heard of it. These days, with an unlikely prospect of any sort of post-release resolution or revelation, Novitzin's film seems destined to achieve at most cult status. Good storytelling alone will guarantee a healthy sliver of popularity in the years to come, but its inherent strangeness will permanently bar it from mainstream audience interest. Turkish lira. $20 Turkish lira. And 50 Turkish lira. That is 80 Turkish lira. That is about $4 American. I'm using $50 as my fucking bookmark. 50 Turkish lira, $4. Well, that's like $2.50 actually. Anyways, the labors of men. Oh, this is chapter 2 now. The labors of men and fuck, thirsty. Oh, Raven's gone. Never mind. The labors of men of genius, however erroneously directed, scarcely fail in ultimately turning to the solid advantage of mankind. Mary Shelley. The Novitzin record actually contains 2 films. The one Novitzin made, which everyone remembers, the one he set out to make, which very few people ever detect. While easily overshadowed by the finished film, the filmmaker's original intentions provide an earlier context to which the peculiar properties of the houses in blue, later on. In many ways, the opening of the Novitzin record, shot back in April of 1990, remains one of the more disturbing sequences because it so effectively denies itself even the slightest premonition of what will soon take place on Ash Tree Lane. Not once during those initial minutes does Novitzin indicate he knows anything about the impending nightmare he and his entire family are about to face. He is wholly innocent, and the nature of his house, Houses in Blue, at least for a while, lies beyond his imagination, let alone his suspicions. Of course, not everyone remains in accordance with this assessment. Dr. Isaiah Rosen believes Novitzin's a fraud from one frame, and his early posturing puts the entire work at risk. Rosen assumes the beginning is just a case of bad acting performed by a man who has already envisioned the rest of the film. Consequently, Rosen seriously undervalues the importance of Novitzin's initial intentions. All too often, major discoveries are the unintended outcome of experiments or explorations. Where was I? Sorry. I lost my spot completely. I was watching Raven leave. Anyways. Whoop. Aimed at achieving entirely different results. In Novitzin's case, it's impossible to disregard his primary goal, especially since it served as progenitor. Progenitor to, or at least very least, the near origin to all that followed. Rosen's presumptions, not the first and definitely not the last times upon him implied the Novitzin records exists, lead him to dismiss the cause for the result, thereby losing sight of the complex and rewarding relationship that exists between the two. It's funny. Novitzin tells us at the outset, I just want to create a record of how Karen and I bought a small house, Houses in Blue, in the country and moved in with our children. Sort of see how everything turns out. No gunfire, famine, or flies. Just lots of toothpaste, gardening, and people stuff, which is how I got the Guggenheim Fellowship and the NEA Media Arts Grant. Maybe it's because of my pastor expecting something different, but I just thought it'd be nice to see how people move into a place and start inhabiting it. Settle in, maybe put down roots, interact, and hopefully understand each other a little better. Personally, I want to create a cozy little outpost for me and my family, a place to drink lemonade on the porch and watch the sun set. Which is almost literally how the Novitzin record begins, with Will Novitzin relaxing on the porch of his small, old-style heritage house, Houses in Blue, enjoying a glass of lemonade, watching the sun turn the first few minutes of the daytime into gold. Despite Rosen's claim, nothing about him seems particularly devious or false, nor does he appear to be acting. In fact, he is a disarmingly pleasant man, lean, attractive, slowly edging through his 40s, determined once and for all to stay in and explore the quieter side of life. At least initially he succeeds, providing us with pristine glimpses of the Virginia countryside and rural neighborhood, purple hills born on the fringe at night, before moving past these establishing shots and focusing more closely on the process of moving into the house in blue itself. Hello. So. Unrolling pale blue oriental rags, arranging and rearranging furniture, unpacking crates, replacing light bulbs and hanging pictures, including one with his own prize-winning photographs. In this way, Novitzin not only reveals how each room is occupied, but how everyone has helped apply his or her own personal texture. At one point, Novitzin takes a break to interview his two children. These shots are also impeccably composed. Son and daughter bathed in sunlight, their warmly lit faces framed against a cool backdrop of green lawn and trees. 5-year-old daughter Daisy approves of their new house, Houses in Blue. It's nice here, she giggles shyly, though she's not too shy to point out the absence of stores like Bloomingdale's. Chad, who's 3 years older than Daisy and a little more self-conscious, even serious. Too often his response has been misread by those aware of the film's ending. It is important to realize, however, that at this point in time, Chad has no sense of what the future holds. He's merely expressing anxieties natural for a boy. his age, who has just been uprooted from his home in the city and deposited into a vastly different environment. As he tells his father what he misses most is the sound of traffic. It seems the noise made by trucks and taxicabs created for him a kind of evening lullaby. Now he finds it difficult to fall asleep at the quiet. What about the sounds of crickets? Novitzin asks. Chad shakes his head. Not the same. I don't know. It's just silent. No sound at all. Does that scare you? Chad nods. Why? Asks his father. Like something's waiting. What? I don't know, Daddy. I just like the sound of traffic. The question of lengthy narrative descriptions is a critical chapter. Okay, that's a weird footnote. Hi, Raven. Oh, fuck me. Anyways, of course Novitzin's pastoral take on his family's move hardly reflects the far more complicated and significant impetus behind his project. Namely, his foundering relationship with longtime companion Karen Green, both of whom have been perfectly content not to marry. Novitzin's constant assignments abroad have led to increased alienation and untold personal difficulties. Now, after nearly 11 years of constant departures and brief returns, Karen has made it clear that Novitzin must either give up his professional habits or lose his family. Ultimately unable to make this choice, he compromises by turning reconciliation into a subject for documentation. None of this, however, is immediately apparent. In fact, it requires some willful amnesia of the more compelling sequences ahead. We are to detect the subtle valences between Will and Karen, or as Donna York phrased it, the way they talk to each other, the way they look at each other, and of course, the way they don't. I just noticed that the background was near imperceptible to you. Granted, that doesn't matter much because it's a book. Raven. What you doing? Okay. Kitty cat cat. Kitty cat cat cam. Fuck. Novitzin, we learned, began his project by mounting a number of high 8s around the house in blue, and equipping them with motion detectors to turn them on and off whenever someone enters or leaves the room. With the exception of the 3 bathrooms, there are cameras in every corner of the house. Novitzin also keeps on hand 2 16mm air reflexes and his usual battery of 35mm cameras. Nevertheless, as everyone knows, Novitzin's project is pretty crude. Nothing, for instance, like the constant eye of CCTV systems routinely installed in local banks or lavish equipment and multiple camera operators required on MTV's Real World. The whole effort would seem very home movie-ish at best if it were not for the fact that Novitzin is an exceptionally gifted photographer who understands how 1/16 of a second can yield an image worth more than 24 hours of continuous footage. He is not interested in showing all the coverage or attempting to capture some kind of Catholic or otherwise mythical view. Instead, he hunts for moments, pearls of the particular, an unexpected phone call, a burst of laughter, some snippet of conversation which might elicit from us an emotional spark, or perhaps even a bit of human understanding. More often than not, the near wordless fragments Novitzin selects reveal what exploitation could only approximate. 2 such instances seem sublime. Because they are so short and easy to miss, it is worth reiterating their content here. In the first one, we see Novitzin climbing on top of the stairs with a crate full of Karen's things. Their bedroom is still cluttered with lamps and bubble wrap and assorted unpacked suitcases and garbage bags full of clothes. Nothing hangs on the walls, their bed is not made. Novitzin finds some room on top of the bureau to set down his load. He's about to leave, and some invisible impulse stops him. He takes Karen's jewelry box out of the crate, lifts the hand-carved horn lid, and removes the inner tray. Fortunately, whatever he sees inside is invisible to the camera. When Karen walks in carrying a basket stuffed with bed sheets and pillowcases, Novidson has already turned his attention to an old hairbrush laying next to some perfume bottles. "What are you doing?" she immediately asks. "This is nice," he says, removing a big clump of her blonde hair from the tie-ins and tossing it into the wastebasket. "Give me that," Karen demands. "Just you watch. One day I'll go bald and then you won't be sorry you threw that away." "Then won't you be sorry you threw that away?" "No," Novidson replies with a grin. It is unnecessary to dwell here on multiple ways in which a few seconds demonstrate how much Novidson values Karen. Except to highlight how, despite his sarcasm and apparent disregard for her things, the scene itself represents the exact opposite. Using image and exquisitely controlled edits, Novidson has, in effect, preserved her hair, called into question his own behavior, and perhaps in some way contradicted his own closing remark, which Samuel T. Glade has pointed out could refer to either watch or bald or sorry or all three. Even better, Novidson has permitted the action and subtlety of the composition to represent the profound sentiments at work without the molestations of some ill-conceived voiceover or manipulative soundtrack. Water. Hopefully this hasn't been like too blurry or whatever. Granted, the main thing to worry about is the voice, but still. In keeping with this approach, the second movement also does without explanations or disingenuous musical cues. Novidson simply concentrates on Karen Green. Once a model with the Ford agency in New York, she has since put behind her life of Milan fashion shoots and Venetian masks in order to raise her two children. Considering how beautiful she appears on the dreadful high 8 tapes, it is hardly surprising sounds good for me. It looks good for you. Hell yeah. It is hardly surprising editors frequently relied on slides of her pouty lips, her high cheekbones, and hazel eyes to sell their magazines. Early on, Novidson gave Karen a high 8, which she asked her to treat like a journal. Her video entries, which Novidson promised to view only after the film was shot, and then only if she agreed, reveal a 37-year-old woman who worries about leaving the city, growing old, keeping trim, and staying happy. Nevertheless, despite her purely confessional content, it's not a journal entry, but rather an unguarded moment captured on one of the house high 8s, and it demonstrates Karen's almost bewildering dependence on Novidson. Ooh, fuck. Karen sits with Chad and Daisy in the living room. The children are in the midst of candle-making project, which involves several empty egg cartons, a dozen long lengths of wick, a bucket of plaster of Paris, and a jar full of crystal wax. Using a pair of red-handled scissors, where was I? Daisy cuts the wicks down into 3-inch pieces, then presses them down into an egg cup, which Chad in turn fills with a layer of plaster, followed by a layer of tiny wax beads. The result is some kind of candle with plenty of goop to go around, most of it ending up in the children's hands. Karen helps brush out the hair. Karen helps brush the hair out of her daughter's eyes, lest she try to do it herself and end up smearing plaster all over her face. And yet, even though Karen keeps Chad from overfilling the molds and Daisy from hurting herself with the scissors, she cannot resist looking out the window every couple of minutes. There's a sound of a passing truck, which causes her to glance away. Even though there is no sound, the weight of 100 seconds always turns her head. Though clearly a matter of opinion, Karen's gaze seems just as lost, as it is surfeit with love and longing. The reason Fuck. The reasons are in part answered when Vincent's car pulls into the driveway and Karen hardly attempts to contain her relief. He instantly leaps up from the mini candle factory and dashes from the room. Seconds later, no doubt thinking better than herself, she returns. Daisy, hold off using the scissors until I get back. Mommy! Daisy shrills. You heard what I said. Chad, keep an eye on your sister. Mommy! Daisy squeals even louder. Daisy, Mommy also wants you to look after your brother. This seems to appease the little girl, and she actually settles down, smugly eyeing Chad, even though she continues to snip wicks. Fuck. Strangely enough, by the time Karen reaches Novitzin in the foyer, she has quite effectively masked all her eagerness to see him. Her indifference is highly instructive, in that peculiar contradiction that serves as connective tissue in so many relationships. It's possible to see that she loves Novitzin almost as much as she has no room for him. Hey, the water heater's on the fritz, she managed to say. When did this happen? She accepts his brief kiss. I guess last night. Here's footnote 18. Footnote 18. 2 pages long. Shit. Sorry, my fan knocked over. Excuse me. Footnote 18. I got up this morning to take a shower and guess what? No fucking hot water. A pretty evil discovery, especially when you're depending on that watery wake-up call. And me being massively dehydrated from a long night, drunk, From a long night, my road dog Lude and I winged our way onto last night. As I'm remembering it now, we somehow managed to end up at this joint at Pico. And soon thereafter, we found ourselves in conversation with some girls wearing black cowboy hats, supposedly lost in their own private blend of brain-hatching euphoria. Thank you, herbal ecstasy, prompting us to put a little verbal ecstasy on them, which would, as it turns out, ultimately lead them giggling into the night. I've forgotten what we did to get exactly get the whole thing rolling. I think Lude started giving one of them a trim, whipping out his scissors, which he always has on hand. Like old gunslingers, I guess. Always had their Colts. There he goes. Snipping locks and bangs, doing a great fucking job, too. But hey, he's a pro. And all of it in the dark, too. On a bar stool surrounded by a dozen of you-know-who's, fingers and steel clicking away. Tiny bits of hair spitting off into the surrounding turmoil. The girl's nervous until they see he really is the shit, and they're immediately chirping, me next. Oh no, do me. Which is too easy to remark upon. So instead, Lude and I remark upon something else. Which this time is all the same insane adventure I supposedly had when I was a pit boxer. I knew I never heard that term before, nor had Lude. Lude had made it up and went with it. Oh, come on, they don't want to hear about that, I said with as much reluctance as I can reasonably feign. No, Haas, you're wrong. You must. Very well. I started to recall for everyone how at that lonely age of 19, I'd climbed off a barge in Galveston. Actually, I escaped, I improvised. See, I still owed my crazy Russian captain $1,000 for a wager I'd lost in Singapore. He wanted to murder me, so I practically had to run the whole way to Houston. Don't forget to tell him about the birds, Lude winked. He was just throwing shit at me, something he loved doing, keeping me on my toes. Sure, I mumbled, stretching for an explanation. This barge I'd been on was loaded with dates and pounds of hash and an incredible number of exotic birds, all of it, of course, illegal to transport. But what did I know? It didn't exactly affect me. Anyway, I wasn't sticking around. So I reach Houston, and the first thing that happens, some twerp comes and tries to rob me. Lude frowned. He clearly wasn't pleased with what I'd just done to his birds. I ignored him and continued. Oh, Raven's behind me. I ignored him and continued. This guy had just walked straight over to me and told me to give him all my money. I didn't have a dime on me, but it wasn't like this Weasley son of a bitch had a weapon or anything. So I slugged him. Down he went, but not for long. A second later he pops up, and you know what? He's smiling. And then this other guy joins him, much bigger, and he was smiling too, shaking my hand, congratulating me. They'd been searching all day for a pit boxer. Pay was 200 a night, and apparently I'd just made the grade. This Weasley son of a bitch was the head interview. His partner referred to him as the punching bag. But now the girls were crowding around me and Lute, sucking down more drinks and all falling into the rhythm of the story. Carefully I led them through that first night, describing the ring with its dirt floor, surrounded by hordes of folk, come to bet a few dollars and watch guys hurt themselves, hurt someone else. Gloves were not an option in this kind of fighting. Miraculously, made it through alive. I won my first 2 fights, a couple of bruises, cut cheek. But I walked out with a $200 and punching bag forked for ribs and beer, and even let me crash on his couch. Not bad. So I continued. In fact, for a whole month, I did this twice a week. Oh fuck, I'm gonna get more water. My apologies. I'll be right back. Oh man. Man, oh man, oh man. Welcome to the chat room. A second cat break. Oh, stretch, yes. Oh, feet. Make sure you stretch as well. It is good, it is good, it is fun. Do it. Take care of yourself. I had a little burp. Cute. What's cute? Raven? That's true. Look at her go. Look at her go. Look at her thinking that it's behind the door. Yes, Raven. Look at her. Look at her go. Oh, that was like chair noises. She is an adorable cat. Look at her go. She's so fat. But it's actually not fat, it's just fluff. She's fluffy. She's so fucking fluffy. Alright, it appears he's done for now. So back into the tiny corner. In fact, for a whole month, maybe I did this twice a week. See the scar on this eyebrow there? Lude pointed, giving the girls one of those all-knowing, completely over-the-top nods. Thought he broke your front tooth, too. A girl with a ruby pin on her cowboy hat blurted out, though as soon as she said it, I could see how bad she felt mentioning my busted incisor. I'm getting to that, I said with a smile. Why not work the tooth into it, too, I thought. After 3 or 4 weeks, I continued, I had enough dough to pay back the captain and even a bit for myself. I was pretty tired of the whole thing anyway. The fights were bad enough. Incidentally, I'd won every one. I added, Lude scoffed, but having to be wary all the time around the likes of Punching Bag and his partner, that was by far the worst aspect. Also, as it turned out, the place I was staying in was a whorehouse, houses in blue, full of these sad girls who, between their own senseless rounds, would talk about the simplest, most inconsequential things, like to better on the barge, even with the captain and his murderous moods. Well, my last night, the twerp pulled me aside and suggested I bet my dough on myself, and I tell him I don't want to do that because I could lose. Fucking stupid kid, he spits at me. You've won every fight so far. Yeah, I say, so. Well, I figured it out. It's not because you're any good. They've all been fixed. I find some lump, pay him $50 to swing and dive. Made a killing on the bets. You won last week, you won the week before, you'll win tonight. I'm just trying to help you out here. So being the stupid kid I was, I bet all the money I had and walked into the ring. Who do you think was there waiting for me? I gave everyone a chance to come with their answer while I drained my glass of beer, but no one had a clue who I was about to fight. Even Lude was a step behind. Of course, that depends on how you look at it. He was also fondling the ass of a girl with a tourmaline and her cowboy hat, while in turn she, or so it appeared, was caressing the inside of his thigh. In the middle of all this Houston losers, all of them screaming odds, screaming money, licking their gums for blood, stood Punching Bag, fists all taped and not even the flicker of a smile, the slightest bit of recognition in his eye. Well, let me tell you, he turned out to be a mean-spirited, remorseless son of a bitch. The first round, he knocked me down twice. In the second round, I almost did a get-up. All month long, he and his partner had been boosting the numbers on me, so that when Punching Bag, and at this point, he was a long shot, slaughtered me, they'd walk out with a small fortune, or run. Me, though, a dumb 19-year-old who wandered into Galveston after... After 3 months at sea, I was going to lose my money and wind up in a hospital, maybe worse. Since the fights were just 3 rounds long, I only had one more left to do something. His partner threw a bucket of ice water on my face and told me to crawl out and get it over with. As I wobbled to my feet, I shook my head, saying it out loud enough so he could hear me, but not loud enough so he'd think I was selling something. I said that it was all too bad because I've been planning to use my money to buy a shipment of some stuff worth at least 1,000% on the street. Well, the last round, I should say, Punching Bag broke my tooth. I was out. They both originally planned to ditch me, but my little gambit had worked. After what that partner had heard me say, which I'm sure he shared as soon as he could with Punching Bag, they dragged me along, dumped some whiskey and me into their truck, and then started grilling me about that stuff I've been babbling about, trying to find out what was worth 1,000%. Now I was in a bad way. more than a little afraid they'd do something really evil. They found out I've been bullshitting them. Still, if I stayed in Houston, I'd probably be lynched by the betters, who by now had figured out something was sour, which could only mean one thing to them. All explanations to the grave. Punching Bag and his partner and me were to blame. I had to think fast. Besides, I still wanted my bunny back, so... By now, even Lude was hooked. They all were. The girls all engrossed and smiling and still shimmying closer, as if by touching me they could find out for sure if I was for real. Lude knew it was pure crap. He had no clue of where I was heading. Tell you the truth, neither did I, so I took my best shot. Pointed them to the barge. I didn't figure out what I'd do once we got there, but I knew the ship was leaving with the tide early in the morning. Luckily, we arrived in time, and I immediately went out to find the captain, who, as soon as he saw me, grabbed me by the throat. Somehow, between gasps, I succeeded in telling him about Punching Bag and his partner and their money. All their money, which included my money, most of which was in essence the captain's money. That got the bastard listening. A few minutes later, he sauntered over to the duo, poured them mugs of coffee mugs full of vodka, and in his incomprehensible accent began going on and on about pure New Guinea value. Punching Bag had no idea what the city was talking about. Neither did I, for the matter. But an hour or two bottles of vodka later, he came to the conclusion that the captain must be talking about drugs. After all, the captain kept mentioning Euphoria, Spanish explorers, and paradise, even though he refused to show Punching Bag the tiniest bit of anything tangible, vaguely referring to the custom officials and the constant threat of confiscation and jail. Now here was the clincher. While he's babbling on, this van drives up and a guy no one had ever seen or will ever see again gets out, gives the captain $1,000, takes one crate and then drives off. Just like that. And boy does it. Just like that, and boy does that do it. Without even examining what he's buying, Punching Bag hands over 5 Gs. The captain, keeping his word, immediately loads 5 crates into the back of Punching Bag's truck. I'm sure the twerp would have inspected them right on the spot, except suddenly in the distance we all hear police sirens, or harbor patrol sirens or some shit. They weren't after us, but Punching Bag and his partner still got spooked and they took off as fast as they could. Even after we got to sea, the captain was still laughing. I wasn't, though. The bastard wouldn't give me any of my money. By his way of thinking, and him explaining this to me in that incomparable accent of his. I owed him for saving my life, not to mention transporting my sorry ass all the way to Florida, where I finally did end up going, nearly dying in a cold water place called the Devil's Ear, which is altogether a different story. Still, it wasn't so bad. When I think now and then about Punching Bag and his partner, I mean, I often, I wonder what they did, what they said when they finally opened all those crates and discovered all those fucking birds. Over 50 birds of paradise. A few months later, I did read somewhere how Houston police busted 2 known felons trying to load a bunch of exotic birds at the zoo, which is pretty much how the story ended, or at least the story I told last night. Not much verbatim, but close. Unfortunately, nothing happened with the girls. They just ran off giggling into the night. No digits, no dates, not even their names. Leaving me feeling dumb and sad, a bit broken thermos. Bit like a broken thermos. Fine on the outside, but on the inside, nothing but busted glass. Why I'm going on about any of this right now is beyond me. I've never even seen a bird of paradise. I'm sure as hell never have boxed or even been on a barge. In fact, just looking at this story makes me feel a little queasy all of a sudden. I mean, how fake it is. Just sort of doesn't sit right with me. It's like there's something else, something beyond it all, a greater story which still looms in the twilight, which for some reason I'm unable to see. Anyway, I didn't mean to wander into all this. I was telling you about the shower. That's what I wanted to deal with. You probably know, finding out there's no warm water in this particularly unpleasant discovery simply because it's not something you figure immediately. You have to let the water run a while, and even though it remains icy, part of you still refuses to believe it won't change. Especially if you... What? Wait a little longer. Oh, fuck me. This is all footnote 18. The actual story continues at the top here, and then it goes back to footnote 18, so I'm gonna continue up footnote 18 until it's fucking done. Wait a little longer, open up the valve a little bit more. So you wait, but no matter how many minutes run by, you still see no steam, you still feel no heat. Maybe a cold shower would have been good for me. Thought crossed my mind, but it was already too freezing to even try for a quick one. I don't even know why I was freezing. It was pretty warm in my place, even warmer outside. Maybe my big brown corduroy jacket helped. Later, I spotted some workers in the back tackling the water heater. One of them snorting on a dirty handkerchief covered in tats. Manson crucified on his back. Told me he would be fixed by this evening. It's not. Now, I'm sure you're wondering something. Is it just coincident that this cold water predicament of mine also appears in this chapter? Not at all. As a pen, you only wrote heater. The word water on the back there. I added that. Now there's an admission, eh? Hey, it's not fair. You cry. Hey, fuck you, I say. Wow, I'm mad. Am I mad right now? Clearly a nerve's been hit somewhere, but I don't know how, why, or by what. I sure don't believe it's because some crummy made-up story or a lousy water, parentheses, heater. Can't follow the feeling. If only any of it were true. I mean, we'd all be so lucky to wind up a punching bag and still find our crates full of birds of paradise. No such luck with this crate. Let the cold water run. It's gotta warm up eventually, right? What both these moments reveal is how much Will and Karen need each other and yet how difficult they find handling and communicating those feelings. Unfortunately, critics have been less than sympathetic. Following the release of the Davidson record, neither Karen nor Davidson's reputation escaped unscathed. Karen, in particular, was decimated by a vituperative stream of accusations from the tabloids and reputable reviewers, and even his strange sister. Leslie Buckman blows high the roof beams when she calls Karen Green, a cold bitch, plain and simple. A high-fashion model, not much smarter than a radiator, who grew up thinking life revived around club owners, cocaine, and credit card limits. Watching her burble on about her weight, her children, how much she needs fits in made me want to retch. How could she say she loves a man when she's incapable of anything even remotely resembling commitment? Did I say she was a cold bitch? She's also a slut. Damn. Buckman is not alone in her opinion. Dale Cordigan has also pointed out that Karen is anything but a lovely houses in blue wife. Karen hardly gave up the promiscuous behavior that marked her 20s. She only became a little more discreet. In retrospect, the rapid speculation over Karen's infidelity seems driven by a principally sexist culture, especially since so little attention was paid to Davidson's role in their relationship. As David Little once exclaimed, if he has horns, who's to say that he doesn't have hooves? Fortunately, unlike the biased treatment offered by the media, Davidson does not hesitate to conclude in this film evidence of his own failings. In fact, as of late, many have called into question the accuracy of this self-portrait, observing that Davidson may have gone too far out of the way to cast himself in a less than favorable light. Not only did Davidson reveal through Karen, Chad, and Daisy how he spent the last decade perfecting a career in distance, where taking off on a moment's notice to shoot Alaskan fishing boats was something his family just had to accept, even if that 3-day trip slowly evolved into weeks and months. He also, by way of the film, admits to carrying around his own alienating and intensely private obsessions. I'm going to put on that campfire one. There we go. There we go. How about this? As it turns out, though, the first hint... Oh, fuck. Nope. I had a little verp. I will be right back again. More water. Make sure you take care of yourself and go pee and stuff. I will be right back. Alrighty. Holy fuck, it's been 2 hours. Alright. Raven. How many pages are left? Oh, it's this one. Cool. As it first turns out, though, the first hint concerning these dark broodings does not come from him, but from Karen. Novidsen's early High 8 journal entries are so easy and mild that they rarely, if ever, allude to deeper troubles. Only Karen staring straight into that little lens brings up the problem. You mentioned Delisle again, she says in extremely clipped tone. I've warned him if he's not going to tell me who she is, you better damn not bring her up. Part of this move south is supposed to be putting the pasts and all that behind us, and he's been pretty good, but I guess he can't control his dreams. Last night he wasn't sleeping very well. I was cold. It was the middle of May, but I felt like I was lying in a freezer. I got up in the blanket when he came back. He was talking to sleep Delisle. Just like that, out of the blue. I'm sure he said her name twice, almost shouted it. As it turns out, Karen was not the only one who was kept in the dark about Delisle. Even friends and fellow photojournalists who had heard Novidsen use the name before never received any sort of explanation. I'm glad that you're finding this enjoyable. No one had any idea who she was or why it was haunting his thoughts and conversations like some albatross. That said, while the first sequence certainly hints at a number of underlying tensions in the Novidsen Green family, all brought into relief by this chapter, it is crucial to not lose sight of the prevailing sense of bliss still evoked by those opening minutes. After a couple of nights, Chad no longer has trouble sleeping. After a couple of days, Daisy's nipped finger heals. The heater is easily repaired. Even both parents enjoy a private moment together where the hands playfully unlock and interlock. Will finally putting his arm around Karen as she, letting out a heartstring sigh, rests her head on his shoulder. In fact, it's rare to behold such radiant optimism in anything these days, let alone films, each frame so replete with promise and hope. Novidsen clearly cherishes these bucolic, near-idyllic impressions of a new world. Of course, nostalgia's role in shaping the final cut must not be forgotten. especially since within a year these pieces were all Novitzin had left, Karen and the children a mere blur racing down the staircase. The pointillism of their pets' paw prints caught on the dew-covered lawn, or the house, once again in blue, an indefinite shimmer, sitting quietly on the corner of Sucketh in Ash Tree Lane, bathed in afternoon light. Oh, after 3, this is where I'm gonna end it. Look at how fucking much we and how much we have left. I'm gonna start earlier, but I know a friend wanted to play Mario Kart or something with me, so I'm going to end it right there. Thank you very much for joining me. I'm excited to do more of this, actually. I like reading. I don't like doing it out loud, but, you know, thank you very much. Bye-bye! Oh wait, who else is streaming, actually? Yo. Yo. Fucking wide cat. Oh, hell yeah. Damn. Oh, okay. Bye, everybody. Mwah. Have a wonderful night. Ah, what? Why are you screaming? We'll do more of this tomorrow.
I cannot let you escape, Squidward. I am adding another demon core to your confinement until you calm down.
What? Bye.